consumption regulations that we have in the health code, or proposed for the health code, Article 8A. If you want to continue to comment after this listening session, you can continue to do so until October 21st. We have 3 different ways for you to comment to us. One is in writing. The other is at cannabisprogram@sfdph.org. And we also have a Survey Monkey on our website. After we've gathered all your comments, we will collate them, and if we change the proposed regulations, we will send it out for another review by any interested party. Oh, in addition to that, for your comments, you'll have 2 minutes, and the clerk will ring a bell and tell you if your 2 minutes are up. She'll be timing you.
So I actually just came to say thank you so much for taking ownership and really mapping out all of the different license types. I think that it's a really comprehensive. I will be sending written comment as the time goes on. However, I wanted to propose maybe starting one more license type for standalone consumption permits for places like yoga studios or cafes or any of that would allow for another experience. And I know we got stopped in the park earlier today. It was someone with the park ranger thinking that we were smoking in the park, and so obviously something that's going to be enforced upon. So if we have a cafe up the street from here to be able to go to, it would be an amazing experience where we wouldn't have to have those interactions as our daily thing. So thank you.
Shauna, I'm the CEO of Access of Love, SF, and I had a few quick comments, and I do appreciate your efforts on this. I did want to mention that the Medical Cannabis Inclusionary Task Force, which I held the patient advocacy for 2 terms, and my committee voted for the city to follow through and put up 2 standalone harm reduction facilities and fulfill the promise of Prop S, which is a municipal medicine garden. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we are in a crisis with compassion. Governor Brown vetoed compassionate care. So now more than ever, we need the city to dial back in with the patient advocacy movement. We are sure and have the science behind us that cannabis and CBDs will help solve our opioid problem. And the people that get tickets the most are not people that are going to be going to fancy cafes or VIP rooms connected to industry stores, but are people that do not have any place else to medicate and are in need. And so I hope that the city will once again redial in with us. We met earlier this year with a few, with Israel and a few other people from the health department to map out what this could look like. And I hope we can revisit that and really bring leadership to compassionate care. Thank you.
Next we have Kevin. Down.
Hello, Kevin Dahlia, legal intern for a cannabis law firm. My supervisor asked me to look over the ordinance and see if there's any possible problems with it. I noticed a couple things. I also got the section numbers for you guys' convenience. So under section 19, subsection 9, cannabis businesses are required to refuse service to impaired persons. That's perfectly fine. But can you, in the definition section, define which is by an impaired person? Because if someone smokes a joint or takes a bite of an edible, technically they're impaired. So at what point are they considered impaired and need to be removed from the premises? Also along with that, section 13, subsection 1, cannabis businesses are required, the smoke room must be located in a non-work area where employees are not required to enter designated smoke area as a condition of their employment. Again, that's perfectly fine. But let's say, for example, a security personnel needs to remove someone who is impaired, according to that position, from the smoke area. Technically, their work requirements would be to enter the smoke area to remove them. So I would recommend putting some sort of an exception for security personnel to be able to enter the area to remove possibly aggressive individuals, which I find it hardly likely to happen, seeing that we're talking about high people, but even so, I'd say an exception for security personnel. As well as any suggestions for if the cannabis business wants to have like servers, like a water serving. Of course, I understand that that's kind of the whole point of the section, but just a suggestion. Lastly, it also says that generally all the license types, they're supposed to serve like prepackaged materials and everything. They're not supposed to extract, infuse, stuff like that on thing. But I don't think this necessarily, we're talking about retailers, but it doesn't take into consideration micro businesses. So micro business will be able to retail, but they'll also be able to do all that extraction and infusing and stuff like that. So does that mean once they get a consumption license, they're no longer able to extract and infuse and everything? Or is there like certain guidelines to when they can and when they can't? So I would recommend also adding a section addressing it for micro business.
Thank you.
Terrence Allen.
Good afternoon, Terrence Allen. I am honored to be a San Francisco student. I am honored to be alive today through the leadership of the San Francisco Department of Public Health during the AIDS crisis. I'm honored to be part of the cannabis community and consider part of my life strategy using cannabis as an adjunct therapy in my long time infection with HIV. The direct intervention of the Department of Public Health in that crisis came long before it was recognized or legalized, before it was even spoken on the words of anyone in the federal government. Our Department of Public Health is taking extraordinary leadership to save lives. I'm concerned that as we move forward in the legalized environment with cannabis, we forget that our very department has taken a leadership position on cannabis consumption, and that San Francisco has had cannabis consumption under its very nose for decades. I'm honored to be one of the founders of Floor on Market Street, and we, before January 1st of last year, were legally allowed to serve cannabis cocktails and cannabis beer at our establishment, and did so for 8 months. We served thousands of patrons, we had wonderful time, and we had absolutely no problem. No medical problem, no problem with the police department, no problem with patrons. We had absolutely no problem. When I served as one of the founders of CHAMP, Californians Help Alleviate Medical Problems, in Dennis Jones' old space on Market Street, which is arguably one of the first medical cannabis dispensaries. We had cannabis consumption, and realized that cannabis consumption for patients was critical in their therapy, because without it, they failed to be recognized as part of a community. The isolation of the disease led to additional crises in health. I speak to that as an individual. I remind everyone on this panel and in the department that the department took leadership there and saw that cannabis consumption was a necessary part. Now, we've legalized cannabis in California. You can grow it, you can manufacture it, you can put it in a box, you can sell it, but you cannot consume it unless you have the privilege of a landlord or a landowner giving you permission.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. That creates a problem for the majority of people in San Francisco on any given day. Tourists, people who come into the city without residence, and many, 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 many people who live in subsidized housing or live in housing where their landlord would not allow for the use of cannabis if they knew it and if they were asked to deny that use. If we are going to restrict now the public spaces in such a way that cannabis consumption, as we've known it historically, and as it's been part of the adjunct therapy during the HIV crisis, and as we've seen it work, flourish, and exist with absolutely no problems as recently as 8 months ago, it's baffling to me why this leadership department, why our Department of Public Health would want to put cannabis back in the box. It's almost as if we feel that we need to prohibit the consumption of cannabis.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. You've had your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. John Martinelli?
Hi, Pam. Thank you for letting us speak. I am John Martinelli, and I'm a Air Force veteran. I've been using cannabis for 51 years. I have a disability that I was born with that cannabis serves greatly. I'm also, for the last 8 years, have been a member of the San Francisco Health Plan Patients Advisory Committee. I care a lot about what goes on in these communities. I have veterans that I serve reaching out to me, how can I get off the opioids? Some of it just because they have it from their doctor because of some medical issue. And I had this happen to me 1.5 years ago. I had surgery on my back. And I used opioids that were given to me by them. And even though it was a small amount, because I didn't need a large amount because I'd never done street drugs I'd never done any opioids before, it was only a small amount. But yet again, I still went through withdrawal symptoms. And I used edibles to get off the opioids, and it works. And I have veterans and other people in the community reaching out to me for help, and right now I still can. People that I know in the community that for whatever reason can't make it also have been giving care, been baking for patients and whatever. And if we don't have some set-asides for the providers of compassion here in the city and in the state, these people will go without. I won't be able to, my friends won't be able to do anything with that because we can't afford $25,000 for a permit. We're poor people. Even the people giving the care to the poor people are poor. And so please, we need, set aside consumption sites are so important. When I was 20 years ago, early on in medical cannabis officially here in the city, I was homeless, and places like Champ and 350 Visadero and the Sanctuary allowed you to consume there and stuff. And the Vapor Room as well was a wonderful place. And for some reason, political things went on that caused all of the nice, compassionate places for consumption to close down.
That's right.
Look into the history and see who's behind the money.
Thank you, Mr. Martinelli. 2 minutes. And Denise, Dorey?
Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. My name is Denise Dorey. I'm president of the Central City Democrats, and I'm a longtime member of Access of Love, and I've taken videos at many of our meetings. I've got over 10 years of patient advocacy meetings, and I took videos of it in City Hall. And we're still waiting for the patients to be treated better. And they've regulated all the rich people have gotten, all the lobbyists have gotten all their wishes answered, and we're still waiting. Some people have died waiting. So what we were saying, I'm saying is our patient advocacy committee voted in favor of 2 standalone harm reduction facilities long ago, and these facilities would be connected to Compassionate City Grows, not affiliated with industry, because all they do is obstruct us. And a standalone, and now with the state killing, we need a standalone with no industry, you know, because we're separate. The industry has different priorities. They want to make money, we want to live. So now the state killed the safe injection sites. We need this more than ever. So we need compassionate roads connected to city roads connected to harm reduction facilities. So, see, we patients, we built this community, and cannabis prevents illnesses like cancer and dementia years before onset. So I don't know where they get off calling it recreational, because it's all made up. The cannabis is a supplement. I gave my mother a CBD pill, and she never remembered my birthday. You know, it's a very powerful. It's a supplement. So our community keeps folks from being isolated. You know, that's really that can kill you right there. It kills people just being alone with their problems. And Lyme disease and co-infections are difficult to navigate. That's what I'm dealing with. I have to pay for all my own doctor's appointments. You know? So it's a lonely disease, and Shanty only helps AIDS people. So Access of Love helps. There's other people that do it. Thank you.
Many takers, right? What's going on? Hi, everyone. I like to say that I'm pretty scared of standalone compassion sites. We need some place where we can view this stuff. I mean, I walk on, I live on Stevenson and Mississippi, and the people doing heroin and crack out there, the cops walk right by it and harass people smoking marijuana. What's up with that? You know, we need a place where we can go smoke and be legal. I myself am a heart patient. I need my compassion, and I need a safe place to smoke my marijuana so I can be healthy. I went to the hospital, General Hospital, and was turned away for help with chest pain because I had marijuana in my pocket. This is not anthrax control. It's not. Been doing it for 50 years, it ain't hurt me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, Commissioners, I appreciate your time and your willingness to hear public comment today. I would like to speak to really just two particular matters. The first is a matter of some interesting historical relevance. Our Governor, Jerry Brown, who will be soon launching his own satellite to space. In the very end, he got there and is in fact getting a satellite to space. 3 years in a row now has vetoed a particular bill in its 3 different incarnations, the purpose of which was to prohibit smoking, which would include both cigarettes but also joints, at California beaches and in certain other open spaces. And the first time he vetoed it in 2016, he said lawmakers, he did a signing statement for each of the 3 years, which he doesn't do a lot of those folks, taking the stance that it was too broad and punitive towards the citizens. Last year, when he vetoed it, he said his veto was in fact necessary because, and I quote Edmund G. Brown, Governor, there must be some limit to the coercive power of the state. This year, the same bill reached him a 3rd time, and he vetoed it yet again. And in his signing statement, he wrote merely in his own hand, "Third time is not always a charm. My opinion on this matter has not changed. We have many rules telling us what we can't do, and these are wide open spaces." Now, I certainly understand the need and the necessity for the common good and the public health to have fair and sensible regulations here. And isn't that the rub? What constitutes fair and sensible regulations? What constitutes doing justice here? I would like to speak to your better halves on this and encourage you to consider the negative unintended side effects, which I've also spoken to supervisors about, which is You will result in this being outside of schools and at playgrounds, and you will have many people here complaining to you because of that, due to their absence of location. Is why when we created the original alcohol regulations, we required the brown paper bags. We didn't want people to see it. We had all sorts of restrictions on sales, which there should be the appropriate restrictions, and we offered points of consumption, because if we didn't do it, it was going to be in the streets, and it was going to be in the corners, and it was going to be in places that you don't want it. Human nature is real, and we want to socialize. The science is clear that we are social animals, and for thousands of years of history, people have chosen voluntarily to socialize around this substance and other substances. My request today, Commissioners, is that you revisit these regulations, and staff has done a great job starting on this, but give it a second round with a second round of public comment. This needs to be more decisive of the wisdom of our governor and on the realities of human social nature. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our public comments. I have specifically for Section 4, permits of the on-site consumption of cannabis. Number 2, a storefront cannabis retailer or cannabis microbusiness issued by the Office of Cannabis. So essentially, the only way that anyone could get a consumption permit is if they were a retailer or microbusiness. I want to see if you guys can extend these rules to also accommodate for events that are happening outside of the retailer. So I myself, I've been hosting events for the past 10 years, whether they're yoga events or retreats or just talk salons about cannabis and how it affects your wellness and all this stuff. I would love to be able to extend the ability to have a temporary on-site consumption permit, similar to how we have it for alcohol, and where you can apply for a temporary permit to be used at any venue to have consumption. And that consumption could be smoking, it could be other administrative capabilities such as topicals. So we've done an event at Equinox, and we want to be able to show people how the THC within the topicals can relieve pain, or other administrative possibilities such as sublingual. So instead of just thinking about consumption as just smoking, there's so many different administrative ways that we're not actually harming others around us, and we're actually just providing consumption for one individual, and it doesn't require ventilation, etc. Thank you.
Community, we're a cross-pollinated volunteer organization of individuals from the cannabis and hospitality industries who are committed to legalizing a pathway to cook, serve, and sell cannabis cuisine in California. Together with city and state officials such as yourselves, we really hope to lift ingredient prohibitions on packaged edibles, develop responsible food safety practices we can employ to safely permit made-to-order cannabis cuisine prepared with fresh, healthy foods. And then what brings me here today, advocate for more and more broadly regulated consumption lounges to usher in a new era of Canada dining experiences and really put San Francisco on the map as the capital of cannabis cuisine. To earn that title that we believe is San Francisco's birthright, the city must lead. We must think outside the box of prepackaged foods will permit retailers to, quote, heat, reheat, and dispense. We must push the on-premise consumption conversation forward beyond the current scope of the type A, B, and C limited use permits, because frankly they are exactly that, limited. The proposed permits limit dining experiences and promote an unregulated underground cottage industry. They limit on-site consumption to prepackaged processed foods instead of chef-driven fresh foods. These permits treat cuisine as commodities, cooking as manufacturing, and ingredients as illicit drugs. We can do better. And we have lots of ideas for how San Francisco can lead the on-site consumption conversation to earn our birthright as the capital of crop-to-kitchen cannabis cuisine. We would love to work with you. We thank you for this opportunity today to hear our comments and give our community a voice. Chefs and restaurateurs were not at the table when this conversation began, but it's not too late. We're organized now. We want to work with you. We can bring everything we know about how to make food safe, prevent common food allergens, use the model of the kosher kitchen to create safe environments to make San Francisco the capital of cannabis cuisine. Thank you so much. We want to work with you. Just reach out. We're ready. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan Nicholson. I'm one of the partners at the California Cannabis Center at 420 Beach Street on Fisherman's Wharf. Pretty much wanted to voice our concerns and give you our thanks as well for your time taking these questions about cannabis consumption locations and also requiring a retail storefront. Places like Fisherman's Wharf that are so actively visited by tourists also do not have a place to consume their products, but the city does not want to allow dispensaries within the 600 feet of another one or within churches or other tourist places where children may be around. But needing a place to consume while not being around families and things like that would be mostly needed, especially for an area like Fisherman's Wharf. So we would just like to pretty much say what most people are saying here. As far as the consumption law, we need a separate permit or licensing for consumption without having a retail storefront, or maybe just having an exception for places that do not already have a dispensary or because it does benefit said areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Good afternoon. I'm here because I'm a disabled veteran. I have a 20-year opiate addiction, strictly from the medical side, secondary to a 4-story fall 20 years ago. At one time I was up to 420 milligrams of morphine a day. And I've been gradually taking down I'm trying to get off of it through the VA basically, but they do not allow any kind of cannabis. So for people like me and many veterans who are struggling with trying to get themselves weaned off of opiates, this compassionate use of cannabis products. In my case, I don't smoke, so edibles and sublinguals are a great help for both warding off withdrawal symptoms and for the pain killing, because as you withdraw from the opiate, they don't give you anything that really kills the pain, so you just have to deal with a greater and greater amount of pain as time goes on if you wean yourself away from this. Very serious deal. It takes a long time to do. So I'm here because pleading for myself and my fellow veterans who are, I know there are many of them who are going through this that you don't hear about. The VA overprescribed opiates for a long time, and then they got caught up in this latest deal when people started dying in great numbers. Now they're pushing everybody to reduce or eliminate it, and it's a serious problem. And since the federal government refuses to see the light and help people with either studies of cannabis use or to do anything constructive concerning it, San Francisco has to take the lead, especially now since around this latest detail thing. Something has to be done, because otherwise it's all a money deal, and the people who really need it aren't going to get it. Thank you, kindly.
Thank you.
I